I will go ahead and call the meeting to order.
Commissioner Luis Franco,
Present.
Commissioner Ridgway,
Present.
Commissioner Tucker.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the review of Measure S revenue and expenditures.
All right. Thank you, committee members. Thank you for being here this evening. And I know we usually have this meeting earlier in the year, but apologies and thank you for your patience and flexibility with scheduling. What you have in front of you and what was sent out, I believe a couple of days ago, is the fiscal year report for 22-23. And my intention is just to go through it page by page and answer any questions that you may have. If you turn to what would be the third page in your packet, but it's numbered 1, which is the summary and analysis. You'll see just a summary of the expenditures and the comparison versus the general fund and how much of the total Measure S or public safety expenditures made up the general fund. So for year ended June 30th, 2023, police expenditures accounted for 12 million, basically $12.8 million from the general fund. Fire was $7 million, 7.08, for a total expenditure of $19.8 million, which accounted for, out of the 30 million total general fund actual expenditures, accounted for 64%. And so the requirement is 60%, or I think roughly $13 million. Or before we can begin using Measure S funds for public safety expenditures. So the ultimate requirement was $18 million, $18.4 million, as you can see on item E, which is basically item B multiplied by item D. So as you can see, we surpassed that by about $1.4 million. Which is what's reflected in item F. And so that left a remaining balance of Measure S in Measure S of $1.9 million roughly. At the end of the day, skipping down to the last item there, we have a balance in Measure S as of 6/30/2023 of $3.25 million. And that is the summary. Are there any questions?
Chief, I'm sorry, City Manager, the balance seems kind of high. Is that being budgeted for a future purchase or something like that?
Yeah, so for that particular year, it was higher than it ever had been up to that point. If you recall, fiscal year 22-23 we were just getting out of the COVID kind of era, I guess you could say. During that time, our sales tax revenue actually increased very significantly, mostly due to the increase in cost for used cars and new cars. We were, Selma Automall and the Farney Automotive Group were selling a lot of cars, which fortunately for us and for public safety generated quite a bit of sales tax. The following year, 23-24, and you'll see in the report next year, the sales tax revenue flattened a bit. Didn't necessarily decrease, but the growth in the revenue was less. Hello, Mr. Kessler, come join us. So that was the reason for the abnormally high balance. And to answer your question, Commissioner Franco, with regard to what that's being allocated towards, currently in the current budget, we're developing a capital improvement plan, but there was an item that we took to council not too long ago with regard to the fire station that's being built at Huntsman and Thompson. And part of the balance we intend to use, part of this balance we intend to use for that project.
It's budgeted for that, yeah.
Not formally yet, because we don't know the cost yet of what that building is ultimately going to cost us to build. But the anticipation is that we will use some of this funds to build that facility.
I just noticed that in prior years,
Mhm.
after the money was transferred out, that the balance wasn't nearly that high. It was quite a bit lower, so but that makes sense
Mhm.
for preparing for the new fire station. That makes sense.
Correct. And the other factor is increased salaries for public safety, which we raised salaries for the police department at the end of this fiscal year, the fiscal year that's being reported. And so that hadn't been reflected in these numbers yet. So you'll see that in the next report.
Thank you.
Mhm. Moving on to the next page, page 2, you'll just see a summary of all the revenues and expenditures and the total amount that was budgeted for public safety in the general fund. And then on page 3, you'll see kind of a breakdown of how that 64% was calculated to meet the 60% requirement. Police support, police field operations, police admin, fire operations, and fire prevention are all considered when calculating that expense amount. So going on to page 4, and before I move on, Commissioner Kessler, do you have any questions on any of the items that we've gone over so far since you arrived? Great. And so you'll see page 4 is the balance sheet that shows the major expenditures, liabilities and assets, and then our reserve balance, which includes our ultimate fund balance at $3.29 million as of 6/30/23. And then the next few pages, you have the income statement, which is a breakdown of all of the revenue that was received into that fund, as well as all the expenditures that came out of Measure S Fund 295. And then page 7, you have the verification of the payments, the monthly payments that we receive from the state of California that ultimately get credited to Measure S Fund 295. So I'm going to just skip over page 8 and go to page 9, which is our Measure S equipment expenditures. Once in a while, we'll have questions about what these equipment purchases mean, what they were for. So if any of the commissioners have questions about specific purchases, we'd be happy to answer them. Or staff would be happy to answer them. Yes, that was one vehicle, and I believe that was a fire department vehicle, if I'm not mistaken. $2,200? That would be police,
It
yeah.
was a admin vehicle.
Got it. Yep. Thank you. So then the following pages are the CalCard charges. So page 10 is just everything that was paid out of Fund 295 that was paid for with a credit card. And then the next few pages, pages 11 through 20, basically the end of the packet, are the statements of district tax distribution from the state of California. And that completes my report. We'll be happy to answer any additional questions.
Anybody have any other questions concerning the revenue and expenditures? Not. Move on to the next item. Do we have any oral communications?
Commissioner Ridgway, if I may, I think, does the committee need to formally adopt the report before moving on to the next item?
Expenditures.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'll try to word it. I make a motion that we accept the report for Measure S for the fiscal year 2022-23, that it met all the criteria of expenditures and percentages in regards to the Measure S ordinance.
Okay, anybody second that? Okay. Motion made and seconded it. All those that are in favor of that, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. None, it passed.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to oral communications then.
Nobody online?
Now, we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that's other business comments. Anybody?
No comments from staff. Thank you.
Okay.
I have one request, and it's not really about this report, but maybe you want to do all the commissioners, but if I could, just out of curiosity, find out how much Measure S has earned for the community since its inception till this latest report.
That would be, that's good.
Yeah, it's been a while for what, it's
Yeah.
17 years now or something like that?
The total funds generated from the inception of Measure S to this report or to date?
Oh, to date.
To
yeah.
date, okay.
To date.
Yeah. Yeah. Helpful.
I was curious, I kind of remember when we passed it. I had to look it up, but there was like, in 20 years, it should make this much. I'm just personally wondering if it's on track.
Yeah. I think since we haven't had the audit for the previous fiscal year, I think that total will probably end up being through the end of fiscal year 23. So,
Mhm.
Okay, good.
Okay.
great. And we'll, I think we have everybody's email address, so we'll go ahead and email that out.
Like I said, it's just, I know you guys' staff is busy, so,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
convenient for you guys.
This should be fairly straightforward for us to put together. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, requests? Move then that we adjourn this meeting as of 5:46 on August 15th.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.